The Board of Finance meeting for Tuesday, January 20th, 2015 to order. First order of business is public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 2. Item 2.1 would be the approval of the regular meeting minutes of December 15th, 2014. Is there a motion?
Move.
Second.
Second.
Comments, questions, additions, deletions?
I have a question. And
Certainly,
Maybe a correction. On page 4, second line down, it says, Mr. Hoy asked about a payment to Kerma, the town's insurance carrier for laptops? I don't remember that. What, laptops?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was an additional premium for the technology equipment that was purchased, the technology needs. So with the laptops and mobile cars, it was the $600,000 for equipment that
So
we
why were we
purchased.
paying Kerma?
Because they,
Insurance.
our
Insurance
insurance company,
premium.
liability insurance.
Okay. So there was insurance on this equipment? Like I'm
It
still
was an
confused.
additional premium that we were being charged by Kerma for our,
For the technology.
A
for
payment.
the technology equipment.
So,
insure the technology.
if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of suggest in that case, that ask about a payment for additional premium to Kerma, because otherwise it's just confusing to me. Payment for additional premium.
That's the next line.
Okay, there's the answer. All right, there you go.
There you go. Ken?
Just a question, so I didn't see it in my papers, but then again, I perhaps missed the paper. Linda, on page 3 of the minutes, you had indicated that you would get an updated number for us on the kindergarten renovations, because there was some confusion about that number.
Yeah, I sent that out to you after, a couple days after the meeting. I don't know if I have a copy of the email with me. I will double check
Resend
it
it.
and get it and resend it to you. I apologize.
I didn't seem to see it, but
I
I don't
actually,
doubt it, but I didn't see it.
no, actually, I don't believe I saw an email either, but that
I can't
could,
say
maybe
one
just
way or
didn't
the
go
other.
through, but if you sent it, if you could resend it, that'd be
Please.
great. There were a
That
couple
would
of
be
issues
helpful.
that were gonna be follow-up, so,
Oh, okay. Yep, I will resend
thanks.
it.
No.
Right, thank you.
Others?
Page 4.
Jeff? Yep.
Towards the bottom of the Mr. Expansive explain books.
Much more, I think it should be P-A-R-E-D instead of just a spelling change.
Good. Any others?
There was one other follow-up though.
Certainly,
that,
Mike.
And again, Linda, I don't know if it was in the email that you sent about the information on the site improvements that we're not going to get done. Was that part of the email too?
Yes.
That was from page 1.
I do- I know
by
I
the
do
way,
have
and
that in my
that was a
notes.
follow-up question from the previous meeting to
Yes.
the December meeting.
I'll
If
resend
it,
it.
Okay,
That
I
would be
just want to make sure it was part of it. If it
But
is,
yeah, I
then
have the
great.
information here, but I can,
I'll be waiting with bated breath.
it's, it's the painting at Adams, a split AC at Adams for guidance and the PPT office, scanning and indexing of the building plans, the replacement of the blacktop playground at Lakes, and the extra cabinet in the kindergarten. No, sorry, the extra cabinet is something else. That's part of the other explanation.
Got it. Thank you.
I can't even read my own notes, sorry.
Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Recusals? Item 3 rather, correspondence, 3.1, standing building committee minutes. Mike, anything you want to bring to our attention?
I haven't really gone through the minutes in recent meetings. I was at this one, and I did go through, so I think just both for the board and for the audience, just a couple of things, just an update. By the way, I did ask about the minutes, and they do go through a vetting review process, and the chair apologized for that because he's had just a lot of things going on. So we should be getting the reports, the meeting minutes in our packages. On the Adams Window Doors and Renovations project, it is continuing to move forward. Most of the work is done. There are a couple of outstanding issues to that. And obviously with, not to jump too far ahead, but with the way that the bonding questions are going to be, hopefully we will alleviate these problems in the near future regarding projects not getting done for school year. It was just a very challenging project with the existing conditions. District-wide security upgrades, there's still some small items outstanding, but everything is pretty much complete. Police Department is going to get a report from the consultant on the HVAC project next month. Melissa Jones security upgrades. Again, most of that work for the renovation, the actual work is going to be in the bonding for April, coming out in April. But they are looking to go out to bid for that in February, so that the work can start in June and end of September. And as we've talked about, is a major project at Jones. Baldwin was put off a year. Similar reasons for Adams, that it's going to go out to bid in April for work to be completed actually next summer, not this summer. So it was moved off a year just to get everything in line. And the Science Wing renovations project really is the utility installation, because the building will be cut off obviously when the new school opens, so the Science Wing's going to have its own utilities. And that's going out to bid in February for the work to be completed over the summer. And then there were bills that were paid. So other than that, I will entertain any
Separate
questions.
utilities, Mike?
Separate utility. Yes, yeah, it's going to be cut off. The old building will be obviously
It feeds.
cut off. Right, it's feeding from the old one, so it's going to have its own because it needs to be separate.
Okay, and the
Based
school
on the
will
new
pay
school.
for that in there.
Right, exactly.
One item caught my eye on page 2 of the minutes. It seemed like a small item, but I was just a little puzzled by whose responsibility it is and whether we can recover something from the supplier. Jorgensen noted that there's a new proposed change order for a kitchen replacement window. The current sill was cracked and damaged, and the replacement will be $3,400. Whose responsibility is that?
Us. The town is.
It's a current sill.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that was damaged during installation.
It wasn't damaged.
No.
Wow, it sounded like.
It said it was
in
cracked
there.
and damaged during removal.
I noticed the same
Um,
stanza.
Well, let me just read this again, because if I remember correctly, there was work that was not anticipated that required them to remove.
I see.
I think it was cabinetry. And where that was, there was a windowsill, and when they removed it, they had no choice, but they had to remove the sill, and it cracked. It was all integrated, so they had to replace the sill because of the demolition that had to take place.
It was a disintegrating
Very possibly, yes.
part.
Yeah.
See.
So it was not because it was cracked or damaged during construction, it was during an unanticipated demo of material.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question for you. It sounded like you got to a brief glimpse of the bonding request from the BOE, Board of Education, and Mr. Grumman explained that it was a $4.5 million package, and your question to them was if it covered the 2-year period. Did they give you a firm answer? This would definitely be a key point, whether it's a
actually the
2-year
same
request or a 1-year request.
It's the same answer we've been getting from the Board of Ed, which is actually consistent, which is that for this year that they're looking for 2 years on the bonding package. It's going to cover a 2-year period so that we can get ahead of the game for the 2016 year, so that we don't have issues where we're going out to bond, we're trying to rush the projects through, and then we're trying to get the materials and get the work and the labor done by the beginning of school. It gives us more 2 years of planning rather than 1 year planning.
I follow that, but the distinction I'm looking for is, will they come to us next year with another bonding request, or will they make their bonding request now biannually?
That was part of the discussion in our last meeting.
Yes,
Closing
absolutely.
argument, and I think they indicated that they would not be coming back to us next year, because this is a 2-year project, and the Board of Ed is going to discuss getting on the same 2-year cycle that the town is on. So, but we didn't hear.
Looking for
defini-
something
we didn't
more
hear-
definitive.
We didn't hear, we didn't hear definitively that they
Yeah.
weren't coming back next year, and we can certainly ask that question to them when they make their budget presentations. But suffice to say, that number has gone from 4.5 million to 5.
To over 5.4. Well, the superintendent seemed to be saying, I believe in our previous meeting, that he was hoping to get on that 2-year cycle by 2017.
Yeah,
Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That was what's being discussed in this
Right.
document.
Okay. Any others? Thanks, Mike. 3.2, Pension Committee. Any comments or questions? Sheila, do we have return information?
No, the meeting is late this month, it's on the 26th. And Ken Friedman also from Milliman is going to be coming. I don't know if you were aware of that. Obviously, as usual, the board is invited
Right.
to come. I will have the return information this week.
Okay. Could you send out an invite to the board for that meeting?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Sheila, I have a small question. On the first page, it just stood out to me, a small passage that said the pension board stated that there is a legal issue preventing the board from issuing a COLA to one group without all groups being included. Did it come up that someone suggested that maybe a COLA be given to one specific bargaining unit?
Yeah, I think that was in public forum. There was a member of the, as I read that, there was one person who came to public forum was asking about some COLA denial apparently. If you read that second paragraph under public forum.
I see, so it's all or nothing situation?
Well, the police plan states that we have to review the COLA situation every other year, and we do that for all the groups as well. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that means, because there is only one group of police retirees. I know that the person who spoke at public forum is obviously a retiree who has been retired for quite some time. I don't know if he's trying to classify old retirees, new retirees, I'm not quite sure, but there's only one group of police retirees.
All
Right, but this suggests that the answer to the petitioner's question was that if we do it for your union, we'd have to do it for everybody. That's my interpretation.
That's the way I
At least the way the
understood that.
minutes are written.
I'm thinking he was referring to disability, pensioners on disability.
Okay.
That could be the only distinction
Right,
between
because the
police
previous
retirees.
paragraph, they were talking about those getting disability pensions.
Right, that would be the only distinction between the police retirees, really, would be.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. And that you could, and that would be correct, the language.
Sheila, on page 5, 6.2, we withhold the names, but the individual who is retiring and opting for survivor benefits for his spouse, I don't get the last sentence. Should his wife predecease him, the payment would cease.
I think if he gets remarried, the new wife will get zero.
Doesn't say that.
This,
He's taking a
specifics
lower
of the plan.
payment.
right, so
So when, his lower payment would continue for his life,
right,
and then at his death, the payment would cease.
but the way it's written, it says, should his wife predecease him,
Right.
the payment would cease. The payment wouldn't cease because he'd continue to get his
He would get
payment.
his for his life.
There would be no secondary.
No secondary
Exactly.
payment.
The second,
And he,
I sort of inserted that. You're right, the sentence as it's written isn't very clear, but I sort of assumed if she dies first and then he dies, there's no alternative.
Alternative, right.
There's no alternative beneficiary, there's only
Right,
one.
one.
and it,
Second
I mean,
time.
he has the ability now to elect a higher amount
Right.
and not choose the joint and survivor. So
Right.
that would be a loss to him if his survivor did not ever get the chance to take
Chance to
the payment.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything further on it? Good. Item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for December 2014. Linda, where have you been? We haven't seen you in 10 minutes. Yeah, where have you been? What would you like to bring to our attention?
Okay, for December, our expenditures were $5,055,760.03. We are currently a little bit further ahead, percentage-wise expended than we were this time last year. Part of that is due to some of the special education expenditures that are higher than we've anticipated. Some of it is also due to the fact that we haven't received reimbursement from the technology lease expenditures. That should be coming in sometime this month. So we do have a soft freeze on right now where we're monitoring all our expenditures, make sure that that everything is absolutely necessary to run the classrooms and what we're needed, but nothing out of the ordinary is being purchased. to try and keep our expenditures in line by the end of the year. Nothing else really out of the ordinary for expenditures to report.
Okay.
If you have any questions on the
Yeah, I've got a
expenditures?
couple. Yeah, this happens every year, so I'm sure someone has asked this question and I can't remember the answer. Co-curricular, why is it so low at this time, halfway through the year? Are people just not submitting
No,
reimbursement?
they're only paid twice a year.
They're paid twice a year?
Yeah, with some exceptions, but most of them, the majority of them are already paid, only paid twice a year.
Okay.
And the payment gets paid in January, so
Gotcha.
you'll see a difference at the end of January.
Okay, also, it's no surprise, but legal is significantly over already, at 130%. How much worse is that gonna get? Is there anything left in terms of negotiations, or?
We have one contract that's just wrapping up. It should be done, so there should be very small legal with that. Otherwise, we don't anticipate much of anything else. The rest of the contracts have been settled.
Gotcha. I'll save the tuition question for Ken. Let me just finish my last one, and that is site improvements. It's showing 110%, but nearly 20% of that is encumbered. Are we going to continue to wind up being in a deficit position there? We're going to expend everything on the encumbrance, you think? And what projects do those encumbrances represent?
Part of that is due to the antenna project at the high school, which we have, the Board of Ed has to
Is
pay.
funding this year, that's right.
So we're paying for part of it this year. Conversations have been held with the building committee about whether or not the project could pay for part of that project.
Right.
So if they won't pay for it, then we will be overexpended in this account. If they will pay for it, then we will be back in the positive.
Refresh my memory, if you would. This antenna is to allow for radio frequencies, radio communication to emanate to and from the building?
Yes, not only for emergency services, but also for our own personnel, so
Okay.
that the facilities director can talk to the custodians within the building.
Right.
And
They're currently all using radios?
Yes.
Or are they using, they're not using cell phones?
No, radios.
Radios, okay.
Radios. And it's, wasn't code at the time that the project
Right.
was designed, but it's now part of the building code, and the fire marshal is strongly urging that we have this in part of the project.
Are there any discussions around the fact that at the time the high school was approved, we approved that as an emergency services facility, emergency shelter facility? And as such, has the town indicated any willingness to share in those costs?
I know it-
I
okay.
do believe that the issues are totally separate. It's communications within the building. The emergency shelter is for certain aspects of the building to be designed to an emergency shelter and have the resources.
Right.
One of those is not wireless communication throughout the entire square footage of the building. Because those areas that are not communicative
Right.
wirelessly are not part of the emergency shelter. So they're totally separate issues. Unfortunately,
Unfortunately.
finance.
All right, I'm done with my questions. Ken?
In your cover letter, you had
Thanks for that.
indicated that you were going to provide updates to us at this meeting on special services and tuition and special ed transportation for the year. Do you need more time on that?
Do I have to give you anything more than it's just not good?
We know it's not good. We can see it from the numbers in January, but how not good is it? We got 50% of the year roughly, don't we?
Right, so the tuition line, right now, we're looking about a $200,000 over expenditure, and some of this is depending on the amount of the excess cost grant that we actually get back. I'm figuring not getting a big percentage, but you never know with the state. And I'm trying to be a little bit conservative, and if they get a little bit more, then we're a little bit better. The contracted services is going to be about $250,000 overexpended. And transportation's probably about the same, 250 to 300,000 over. Some of the bids that we did for special ed transportation did not come in as favorably as previous bids, so the costs were a little bit higher. And we've had a couple special circumstances where we've had to split and add additional runs or do, as was discussed in the previous meeting, special transportation for in-house students. So right now, between all of them, somewhere in the neighborhood, $600,000 to $700,000,
Special ed.
special ed. Of which we are hoping to make up a good part of that with savings in salaries that were obtained from retirees and new hires of staff that have left.
I'm curious, what is fueling the sharp increase in special ed transportation? With fuel down, even though it's been committed, I understand, but why is it so much higher? And we're planning on it being as high in the new budget cycle as well. I think they're planning to budget it
Right.
at 300,000 above this year.
In the budget, I believe that there was some errors made on budgeting completely for all of the buses that were needed. So not everything was budgeted for. The costs have come in a little bit higher, and some of our needs have changed. So between those three factors, we are sitting with this over expenditure.
So to a certain extent, part of what has contributed to this increase, apparent increase in the percentage that's been expended is it just wasn't budgeted sufficiently. So that was budgeted lower than it should have been.
Right.
Okay.
You know, we have so many situations where we have one student per bus or two students per bus. Is there any way that could be consolidated and have more students per bus?
We have made some of those changes. There are some occasions when the needs of the students don't allow for that, or the locations of the students and where they need to get to don't allow for that. So we have consolidated some of those already and brought some of our costs down so far this year, but there's not always some things that we can do.
Just out of curiosity, you have a line here that says school administration. How many school administrators do we have? About?
It's listed in your budget, but now I'm going to forget the number, and I didn't bring my budget
That's
book
all
up
right,
with
I'll
me.
look it up.
No, it's in here.
Maybe wrong.
Matt, it's a race.
And then the question is, what do you define, how do you define school administration?
There you go.
School administration, that line is listed
You and
principals,
17?
assistant principals,
17, yeah.
deans,
Okay.
special ed coordinators, athletic
17
director.
people.
Broken out too.
And there's,
Now, that doesn't include central office.
nor does it include the coaches who really are listed as
Teachers.
teachers.
Right.
But they're in a hybrid sort of situation. That was a question I had last month. I mean, their work is focused on that clerking responsibility and
Right.
on internal professional development, which in some ways,
They
you know,
receive
hopefully is more
an
cost
additional
effective.
stipend for being a coach, but they're included in the teachers' lines. There's
Yeah, so-
the central office administration, which is 4 people. But then there's also the technology director and the facilities director, which are in other categories. So it depends on how you define school administration.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I just have a general overriding question. I'm noticing that some of the items, some of the line items are getting to be over budget. We're recognizing that the special education costs are higher than expected. Where are we approaching? Are we going to have some offsetting savings that we didn't expect, or maybe some contingency that will help us get back in line?
I'm still working on the rest of the projections right now for all accounts. I do know we are going to have some savings in the teachers line because of these
You mentioned that, yes.
retirements and some of the other staffing changes that we've had. That's going to pick up in the neighborhood of $400,000.
Okay.
So there's a substantial amount there that's going to offset it. The rest of it, I'm hoping to pick up little bits here and there in other places.
These are mid-year retirements?
No, these were retirements that were done at the end of the school year, but because our budget is done so far
I see.
in advance,
I
we
see.
don't know of them. So
see.
we had we had 14 retirements, 2 were administrators where there's no savings. Administrators come in at a set level, so there's no savings there. So there were 12 teachers that retired, most of them that were at the top of their pay scale. And in most cases, we've replaced them with much lower salaries.
So that $400,000 is not that you had less staff, you just had
Less expensive stuff.
Less expensive staff,
Thank you.
yes.
Exactly.
I just want to go back to something you just said. And this is not the first time I've heard it, and not the first time I've rubbed my forehead over it. When a school administrator retires, we are obligated to bring the replacement in at the same salary as the outgoing administrator, despite the fact that there may be a substantial difference in experience level and longevity in that type of role.
That is the way their contract is written, yes. That there is a set salary for each of those positions, principal, assistant principal, dean, there's a set salary.
That's counterintuitive to the way the world works.
Yeah, true. Now, is that a set salary that is specific to Guilford? Or is it basically?
Specific to,
What about West Hartford?
no,
or
specific to
Avon
our
or-
contract with the administrators group,
So basically Clinton could be considerably different?
yes.
When does when do those contract negotiations start again? Do you know?
2 years.
We have 2 more years.
2 more years on it? We'll make sure we have representation at that meeting. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I understand it's bargained for, it's collective bargain, and there may have been, at one point, there may have been a reason for that to have happened. But,
Times change.
yeah.
Look at General Motors. I mean, new hires are getting a different structure than people who've been there for a long time.
Agreed.
They went bankrupt, by the way.
Let's not look at General Motors.
I'm sorry.
All right.
not look at General Motors.
Other questions on expenditures?
I actually had 2
Mike?
very minor. They're in purchase services. They're not big line items, but it's water and service to machines are running higher. The reason I'm asking about water, not so much that it's running about 30% higher than it was last year at this time, but I know that in the budget for next year, water is high, also,
Yes.
or is higher.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, is that a price issue? Or is that an issue that has to do with the use of more water?
It's an issue that has to do with the use of more water, mainly for the irrigation of the fields.
Okay. Which is what I saw in the budget for next year, that
Right.
there is an increased cost because of added
A
irrigation.
number of years ago, an agreement was made between the Board of Ed and the town that we would pay for the irrigation of the fields,
I've asked this.
and they
Yeah,
would
it's a big number.
maintain,
Those two.
and even though some were town's fields. So, one of them, the wheat field, there was a change in the irrigation plan and the timing of, and how much water was used this past, or earlier this year. Much higher expenditures than we had planned on for the irrigation. The other part that you see in the budget is that there is plans to irrigate, or change in the irrigation of one field at Cox and add irrigation to a second field at Cox. Existing fields, not new fields,
Right, the ones up.
which is what drove the budget, also drove the budget up. There has been some discussion between the superintendent and the town about changing this arrangement and looking at this arrangement, because we have no control over the watering, yet we're paying for the bill. So,
Okay.
Mike, you have another?
Well, it was just the service to machines is also running a little bit higher also, and I'm wondering, is that because of older machines and that are gonna be replaced, or is that something that was unexpected as well?
Most of those were, a couple of them were planned replacements or planned, we knew they were going. But the rest of them were just timing of when things needed to be.
So that could be a
Repaired.
timing issue.
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Ken?
I have just a question, not probing any confidentiality issues at all, but two questions about two tuition items. I'm a little puzzled as to what the coding means. You have one on page 6. For the
We're on the warrants now?
Yeah, on the warrants. Is that
Yeah.
okay to proceed?
Yeah.
One on page 6, for the Eagleton School, it says November tuition, one person. Is that correct? A one next to it? And you have on page 7,
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
you
I
have Foundation School, December tuition, 3. Does that mean it's a monthly tuition for one student or 3 students?
Yes.
Monthly tuition.
If it says a month, and it says tuition, if it says November tuition 1, that is one student for the month of November.
Okay,
So let's follow up on that, Ken.
That is over $300,000.
$360,000, $372,000, almost
for this one
for
student,
one student.
for the year.
That's why those tuition line
Unplanned.
Unplanned.
Unplanned. This
So
was
that-
not budgeted, this was not something that we figured on, this was something that came up after the start of the school year.
Now, clearly, that case is it will be eligible for excess cost grant,
Right.
which is only funded at 70% of what they're supposed to be funding us for.
Right, so the excess cost, if they were 100% funded, would pay about $69,000 of that bill. They're not gonna pay the whole 69, so we'll get somewhere, I'm hoping somewhere 75 to 78% like we received last year, but at this point I'm figuring
So
only
we've
about
got about,
70%.
in excess cost, we'll receive about 70% of the figure.
No,
We'll
No.
pay 70%.
It is, what is it, is it 5 times the cost now?
yeah, 4.5 to.
And the average per pupil expenditure is
Ten.
about
It should end up being about $69,000 is what the excess cost grant should pay. So of that $300,000, we should only have to pay $69,000.
Right. So
But
they'll
the
pay
excess
about-
cost isn't picking up all of that difference. They're only gonna pay approximately 75% of that difference, and we have to pick up the rest of that on top of our $69,000.
That could still be worth a couple $100,000 to us.
Yes.
Right.
So there was an additional outplacement this year that wasn't planned. It's a $100,000 one, not a $300,000 one. That one is based on a different rate because of the type of placement it was. So we should get a little bit more from the excess cost on that one. But
And
Until
then
the-
those payments from the state show up in Board of Ed revenue state reimbursement.
Offset against cost.
right, so that will show up at the end of February.
Right.
So on your February report, you will see the excess cost grant come in. And now with the new format, you'll see it in the revenue line.
Right, that's right. Thank you.
And our average cost is, I think Matt said in the neighborhood of 14,000, is that correct, per student?
I'm not sure what goes into that computation these days.
It's around there. It depend, well, on the state's website, you can get several different versions, but I think the one that we typically follow, it's about 14.7, something like that.
That goes into your EDO, whatever you filed in October. Lou?
In the warrants, I have a couple items. One is, and Mike, you may have some input on this, there's a $10,800 charge from CL&P. It says new GHS, which I'm imagining is construction, electricity, and that giant heat pump that's in the back of the
Yes, and
building that
we're
we saw.
going,
But is that correct, or is there other expenses associated? That's a big bill
I'm
for 1
not
month.
sure exactly what generates the bill, but it's a new bill that we just started receiving that we build the
And that's
building.
1 month. So during the life of this construction, or at least during the winter months of this construction, we're gonna be paying $10,000 a month just to?
The building committee is paying for it. We bill them and they're going to reimburse us.
That was my next question. That comes out of the budgeted.
We should not be paying electrical costs for the new high school yet until turnover,
Right.
because it's part of the construction contract, electricity to.
But-
But that may be a very high cost because of the amount of work that's being, the amount of electricity is being used for the construction of the project.
There's a
right
lot
now.
of people doing a lot of things.
There's hundreds of people working on that project probably right now, so there's a big draw.
So that may fluctuate.
It may fluctuate,
Okay.
but we
This
should
was
not,
eye
that
popping.
should not be us.
That
That should be the contract.
Right, so,
Yes.
So there will
I-
be some corresponding revenue
Right, I-
from the building committee offsetting that
right, I
figure.
will, when this first started, I was billing them quarterly because the activity was a lot less. Now that the
Yes.
bills are a bit bigger, I'm gonna be billing them on a monthly basis. And they'll reimburse us for them.
Okay, thank you for all that explanation. There's another item that may or may not be related to the same topic on page 10. The payment to Opticon Incorporated. Phone relocations, almost $2,500 for phone relocations.
That's not related to the high school project.
So what is that? Where are we relocating $2,500 worth of phones?
Good question.
I didn't write down the description of them. 1 second.
9/8 deck. I wonder if that's one of the security projects.
Is it one of the security?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So like rewiring of the main offices, one of the main offices possibly.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty plausible, but if you could,
Yeah,
I'd be curious
I'll let you
to
know
know
exactly
that.
what
It's
it
right at the
is.
end of the summers.
Right,
Good call, Mike.
Linda, right above that line, there's a $929.50 item for Lakes repair phones, which is understandable, but the date is what confuses me.
Good call, Matt.
5/27/2014. Was this continued in force, carried in force?
No, it's a bill that we weren't aware of that they sent us that
Okay.
they
Slipped
said
through
we
the
never
cracks.
received and
Yeah.
we pay it.
Did there was a follow-up bill after the first?
No,
Did we have an outstanding PO for it?
no. I don't think so. That would have,
That would have triggered,
It would have been
carried in
on-
force, right?
right.
Continued in force. Should have triggered it anyway.
The,
no. it
also
wasn't.
the $25,000 for the new high school antenna is on the new building. This is not coming out of the basic funding for the high school.
Page 11.
Page 11, $25,000, new high
That's
school.
for the
antenna.
radios?
Right, that's
That's
part
that
of
same
the.
radio
That's the
project.
radio
That's-
project we talked
That's
about earlier.
the antenna radio project that we are paying for.
Right.
Okay.
Do we expect that that's going to be a set-out expense for, at the same amount, or for how long?
No, that's, it's, I think there's anticipated for about $80,000 in expenditures that are come out of this year's budget for this project. And then the rest is pushed off till the budget for next year.
It's somewhere close to 300,000 for the
There's
entire
about-
project total.
200.
Because 200 is in the bonding for next year.
Right. Not in the
It's
bonding.
capital.
Capital.
Oh,
Site
capital,
improvement.
I'm sorry.
Site improvement for next
Big
year.
correction. Capital, yes.
Capital. Others?
Two warrants here. I had a question on page 4.
Certainly.
It was for Leet dual fuel burners for the commercial heating supply company. And I was just wondering why that wasn't in some kind of capital project. I guess that's coming out of the
Because
operating budget too.
It's a repair of the dual fuel
Repair.
burners for the existing,
Okay.
they have a dual fuel system.
All right.
Yeah.
And they're converting, actually, Leet's converting to gas now, soon.
Okay.
They were putting the gas line in, so
That's all. I
they're
just
converting it to
thought it might
dual
have been
fuel.
a bonded project, but it's
Nope.
capital.
No, it's just for the new gas line that's going down in that area.
Okay. Other questions?
Never missed that one.
Nope. None? Okay. Linda, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Sure.
And we'll look for you to resend that
I will
email,
send those
please.
tomorrow morning.
Thank you
So I
very
apologize
much.
for that. And if you excuse me, I'm gonna head back to the other meeting.
The other meeting? You're
Yes.
Bouncing between meetings.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for December 2014?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Motion passes. Item 5. Review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for December 2014. Good evening, Sheila. How are you? Are you really? You're having a lot of fun with the budget now, right? Yeah. Well, depends on your definition of fun. What would you like to bring to our attention?
Well, start with revenue, and revenue looks good. 64.6% we've collected at the end of December, halfway through the fiscal year, compared to 60.2% at the end of last year. Tax collections are still strong. I took a look at the detail just briefly, and you'll notice that, well, I noticed that we budgeted $150,000 for delinquent taxes, and we've already exceeded that. We've collected $176,000. That's good, that we are somewhat conservative in our budgeting, because that's a tough one to call, you know. I think the tax collector's doing a good job, and we're bringing the tax dollars in. And even the current taxes are at 64, I think 64%, so we're in good shape. We always end up about the same, though. Our collection rate is steady year after year.
99%.
So, oh, it's like 99.6 or 7, yeah, which is great. So I don't see any problems there. We'll take another look at it in February, once we get the second installment, and we'll see where we are. Other departments are strong. Board of Selectmen has a crazy number.
Yeah, no question on that.
But that's a correct number. It's just that we've collected $84,000 on a $1,000 budget. And we're going to discuss, it's mostly all from sale of surplus equipment, including a fire vehicle. We're going to discuss setting that aside in some sort of a capital fund, possibly, and appropriating it toward future capital equipment to mitigate the budget in the future.
Good idea.
Revenue question?
Questions? No?
Yep, Ken.
One question. Is it safe to assume that the police revenues will continue to be up there because of all the construction? I'm thinking particularly of the rock pile, what might be required there, and other emergency situations which seem to happen all the time.
I know, and it is possible. Again, it's tough to call because it's not predictable, but you could kind of look at trends, and, you know, we will consider that when we put together the revenue budget for
Right,
16.
right.
But the past few years, it has been higher than usual,
Yes.
so.
It's just amazing the way the little economic activity just spreads out.
It does,
Throughout the
and you could
budget.
see it across the board here on different levels. All the Town Hall South departments have a little bit of an upturn
Uptick,
in
yeah.
revenue. Building department, health department, they're all seeing the result of basically DDR, and there's several other projects in town as well.
Yeah, it's great.
Youth and family
No,
services.
Boston Street stuff is always.
They continue to be
Boston
strong.
Street stuff.
See that continuing that way? or-
Youth and family, I think, is probably going to remain, it is higher, but I think the director talked in the budget hearings about pretty much staying steady. They only have the capacity to serve so many families, and they did collect more last year, actually, because they were able to, through the Affordable Health Care Act, they were able to get other insurances, but I think this is more of a timing issue. I don't think that I think they'll be probably where they were last year at the end of the year.
And are we typically a month in arrears, too?
Yeah, pretty much with we say that sometimes, she actually has us do it to the exact bill. So it's 30 days, but some of
30
them.
days, yeah.
Yeah, 30 days.
So at an average of about 6,000 a month, that puts them at 120, which is significantly over their target.
And they're a little slower in the summer.
Summertime, yeah. Well, that would indicate that,
I
remember,
know.
we have July and August already in the books, part of that summer, so. Any other questions on revenue?
It's just a quick comment. I guess if we get our town clerk to up the revenue, we'd sweep it. I think everybody's revenue's up.
Town clerk has become a little bit confusing, and we had some issues where we had to straighten out. There's so many other fees that we collect now that go into a different fund on the town's balance sheet, that I think what happened is some of that got commingled and we straightened it out. It's still town revenue that we keep, but it's for specific purposes, so we keep it on the balance sheet and not in the revenue.
Okay, so it's a little higher than I even think. All right.
Any others? None? Okay. Expenditures.
Expenditures are looking good too. We're, I took my glasses on for this. 58.9% collected as compared to 60.1% last year. There's a few things I can bring to your attention, and they're basically good things. And then maybe I'll talk about a few not as good. You'll notice that you have a transfer on the agenda for salaries, and one of the parts of that is the GEA for fiscal 14. The contract was settled in fiscal 15, but there was a fiscal 14 component that we actually reserved some funds for that in a fund balance reserve for contract reserve. But for the sake of getting the salaries paid retroactively, we charge it to these line items. We have to now transfer money into the reserve. It doesn't require a budget transfer. It's just a journal entry that we have to do. So it's $59,000 that too much is charged here. So this number would be even higher. Our percent obligated actually would be lower. Our surplus would be higher if we had made that transfer, which we will do. And also the building department has $36,000 in the part-time salaries, which I need to do a journal entry for, so it doesn't skew the report. Every month it gets higher and it skews it even more, but that will be taken care of by the high school project. And in insurance, there's $104,000, which is reimbursement that we expect from Waste Transfer Station for insurances. That's just a journal entry we do. Again, that will help the bottom line as well. Those are all good things, and just those alone are over $200,000. On legal, we're at 77% obligated for the labor line and 85% obligated for the reval line. That's not so good. I think that labor should tail off a little bit now that we've settled some of the bigger contracts. IAFF is still outstanding though, so they're working on that. So there still are labor contracts that are being negotiated. And reval is going to continue to be high for the next year or so, 2 years. So that will be the one area that we'll just have to keep an eye on that may require a transfer at year end. It's too hard. You can't predict it at this point. And I think that's really it. There's nothing else that's unusual.
I had one question.
Excuse me?
I had one question
That would be?
on expenditures on engineering and public works. I know you always tell us that don't worry about them, it'll all come out in the end and they'll be on budget. But I did notice, at this point in the year, 50% of the year, that we've overexpended on road maintenance for both summer and winter. And
Encumbrances.
It's encumbrances, and don't forget, we have the blanket encumbrances for the winter road maintenance supplies, which we haven't necessarily used as much as we anticipated this year. I'm trying to, but,
Don't say
Joe
it.
here, he'd say, shh.
don't
but,
say it, that's right, yeah, that's right.
that's
You can always hear Joe speaking
$110,000 of encumbrances that, are blanketed, so we'll see how that turns out. What I didn't do is check on the status of the billing for the work orders on the repairs and maintenance line item.
Yep.
Because that one is over expended by $26,000, and that's usually just a billing issue. We bill the departments
Departments, right.
for parts, and if Public Works is behind even a month, then that, you fall into a deficit situation here.
And the same would be for labor work orders.
Labor work orders, I think that we reduced that amount by $500 in the 16 budget. That's for just the departments outside of the general fund. And the billings to those departments are declining,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, under insurance, I've noticed the first three items, workman's comp, liability, auto, crime, and fiduciary, I mean, they're all way up. Workman's comp, I assume that it's just timing, is that what that is?
Well, they're quarterly payments, and if you look at the last payment of the month-to-date expended, that would be one quarterly payment. So I'm looking at you over your shoulder. On the workers' comp, we paid 151, but there's 173 remaining. That means we're going to have a small surplus in that line item.
Okay.
So the 151 was just a quarterly payment.
How about the liability, auto, property?
Same thing.
Same thing, and the crime, fiduciary?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be fine. The one thing that we won't collect, though, and we cut the budget way down, luckily, is the $10,000 equity distribution from Kerma. They're not planning on distributing any equity.
Equity this time around?
This year, no.
Good. Any questions, additional questions on the expenditures?
Not for me.
You got something?
Yeah, in the detail for communications, on the fire department and in communications, there's a $10,000 over expenditure in operating supplies.
I noticed that this morning, it came up at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I need to check on that. It could be one of two reasons. Either we put it there on purpose because it belongs there, and knowing that I tend to like to put expenditures where they belong and fix it in the budget process the following year, or it's just a miscoding. Either way, I know that, I'm certain that it belongs to communications,
Okay.
but we're going to take a look at that.
So it could just be
Fix.
part, I mean, it just seems like such an unlikely.
It could just belong in another line item.
Yeah.
But it's been occurring. It had a balance last month as well,
Okay.
and that has a very small budget in
Yeah.
that line. So we're going to look into that and let you know.
Great, good.
Good. Anything further? Nope. Good. Warrants? I have none on the warrants.
I had something actually, it's just
Take them.
am I up?
It's all yours.
You got it.
So, I'm sure there's a good reason for this, but on page 23,
113 warrants.
113 warrants, sorry, on page 23 and 24, on tree removal. I just wondered how we determine suppliers on this, because I don't know whether these individual companies are expert in one aspect of tree removal versus another, or whether we may be missing a bet by not working with one contractor.
This came up, I think, at you left the budget, the department head presentations, that some of them do have special.
I was there for that, but I didn't.
The issue is one of them has a particular truck that has a
Right.
breach, the other one is
Okay.
available on short notice.
And that would
At the
account
north
for
end of
3
town, maybe.
suppliers.
There's a special purpose for each of the
Yes.
suppliers, and this way he also generates some loyalty from 3 particular contractors. This way, when
Good
there's a
Yeah, Kevin,
natural
good job on that.
windstorm or something, and there's a lot of need on short notice, we have capacity. I think that summarizes it.
Particularly the equipment, I would assume. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
the only question I have.
Is that the only one?
Trees.
Yes.
I live for trees, I speak for the trees.
Well, I didn't know what in-service training was for the Daigle Law Group, $1,500 for in-service training on page 7 of the 116 warrants. Who's getting the training and
police.
development? So that's
That's in the
police?
police line,
That's
yeah.
in the police line, okay.
That's all I could tell you as well. It would be for police training.
Some sort of specialized training. Okay.
Anybody else on warrants?
There's one somewhere here, I'm not sure where it is, but it said alcohol for the fire department.
Oh, I'm sure that it's not the, I'm sure that it's the
Not the kind of
alcohol
alcohol
swabs.
he's drinking.
Rubbing alcohol?
Unless you see the phrase single malt, leave it alone.
Anything else on weekly checks?
I guess I just had a question on the weekly checks. I saw one for ice cream. I was wondering, how does that work?
John, say that again?
Some ice cream from Ashley's, it looked like here, for funding source was drug-free.
Oh, well, that is special funds, and that is the Youth and Family Services grant, so that makes total sense for the children.
Okay.
For a program.
Sounds good.
Good.
Must be a hell of a good ice cream cone.
Yeah, a lot of them. All right, anything further? Medical benefits.
Okay, so medical shows, the projection this month shows a surplus of 136,000, and I keep the model the same, annualizing the past months of actual claims, but this time I actually subtracted out $292,000 over the next, I think I did it from January on, which is the NAF fee, which is part of claims. It's $292,000 that we already paid, so it's in the first 5 months worth of claims. We have the December claim, so there wasn't a payment for it in December, but I annualized out the next 6 months with that number 292 taken out. Okay, that it's just the math.
For the
Yes, on the
projections?
projections.
Okay.
Because we've already paid it. So it's something that I actually discussed with our consultant from Milliman, and he agreed that that's.
Let me see if I understand this. You're taking it out against projected future costs?
If you annualize out the past 6 months, that number, $292,000, would have been in there, paid.
Okay.
So we're not going to have to pay it going forward for
Going
the next
forward.
6 months. So I took out, I think, $58,000 a month
Okay.
to keep it even.
All right.
So that helped the surplus, obviously,
Right.
because without that, we would have had a deficit.
And what does that cost?
It's the network access fees. It's a fixed fee that comes out of claims, and it comes out right at the beginning, in the first few months. So
And is that based on the premium, or what's it based on?
it's actually part of the renewal, so we know that we're going to pay that number right at the beginning. It's the discounts that we pay for the discounts that the doctors get, so that's it's an access fee.
I see. So that's something that we can project from year to year, knowing what it is, or does our carrier come to us and say, this is what it's going to be for
It's
this
part of
year?
the renewal, so it's negotiated along with the retention costs, the admin, the stop loss. It's one of the fixed fees. The claims actually are not fixed, they're self-insured. The NAF is fixed.
I guess that's what I was getting.
So, yeah, it could be negotiated to an extent.
Okay.
I guess I have a comment, and I'm just trying to remember, if we kind of roll back to when we were looking at Anthem's projection for the year and a kind of a blended estimate you came up with the BOE, it seems like we're doing fairly well. Are we
Well, if
on
you
track?
think about it, we have a $14.3 million budget, and we're projecting $136,000 surplus. Even if I didn't take that NAF into account, it would be a $100,000 deficit, say. So it's still very close in terms of a $14 million budget. I think it's great. I think we did a good job with The stop loss, although it's expensive, it's $845,000 in premium costs. We've already saved $527,000 in claims that we didn't have to pay, and that's only halfway through the year, and we've paid the deductibles now. There's there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 individual contracts that are over 50% of the stop loss. 3 of them have hit the stop loss, and 6 of them are over 100,000, coming close to the stop loss.
Good.
So I think that we made a good decision on that. And that's not really factored into the projection at all. The fact that we're going to hit the stop loss sooner now, where we had to pay the deductibles early on in the fiscal year.
Well done.
Sheila, there's just one piece of an acronym on here that I probably should know, but I just can't remember it. It says claim projections after November are adjusted by NAF.
That's the network access fees.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in this. ISL is the stop loss.
So Lou, I think if I'm, no, that's not it, okay. The admin fees in the ISL amount to retention, and ISL premium amount to $845,591 a year, Sheila?
The ISL alone is $845,000, but we're
Right.
projecting $1 million. The other $200,000 is the retention. The NAF fee is like retention, but it's in the claims figure.
It's in the claims figure, that's right, okay, that's the piece. Gotcha. Thank you. We've taken out the INBR in our analysis.
Well, no,
So weren't we in a deficit position
No,
with
we-
the INBR?
we moved money in, so we had a
That's right, we cleaned it up.
$8,000
That's right.
fund balance, including the IBNR. Yep.
Right. Excellent. Anything further on medical? Building permits? No. Golf course? No. Thank you, Cheryl. Is there a motion to accept the bills, to approve the bills, rather, for the town for the month of December in the amount of $2,122,666?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None? Good.
Do you need me, or?
Yeah, just stay there for a minute. Item 7, discuss and take possible action on salary transfers as recommended by the Board of Finance. It should be Board of Selectmen, right? Am I correct?
It should be recommended by the Board of Selectmen, right?
Yeah, thank you. Okay. We had the detail provided to us, and this is as a result of the settlement of several contracts recently, where we, in anticipation of increased salary costs, we move money into reserve for personnel. When the contracts are settled, we take the money out of reserve for personnel and move it back into the department line item. There are 4 contracts that have been settled. Confidential supervisors, Guilford Supervisors Association, NAGE, which is a communications, police and fire communications folks, Guilford and the Guilford Employees Association. The total amount being requested is $242,500. And I won't bore you with where it goes, but suffice to say, it's in the detail here in our document. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Is-
Second.
Is there a second? Yep, good. Any further questions?
Just one question. It looks like there'll be a balance that's left.
The IAFF is still under
Still open.
negotiations.
Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Good.
Nicely done. It's good to get those contracts
All right.
buttoned up.
Good. Item 8, consider and take possible action on the request from the Board of Selectmen with regard to capital plan purchase. This morning, the Board of Selectmen took the following action. They voted unanimously to transfer $242,500 from reserve for personnel to various accounts as outlined in the Finance Director's
Send me an
memo.
extra copy
We
of that.
just completed that piece.
I've seen that.
The request for the capital plan, that the board voted unanimously to award bid number 13-1415, mini excavator for Public Works to F&W Equipment Corporation, in the amount of $89,572, subject to a recommendation of the Board of Finance in accordance with the April 9, 2013 bond resolution. The appropriated amount in the bond authorization is $125,000, which means that it came in $36,000, almost $36,000 under what we had anticipated it to be. Is there a motion to approve the $89,572?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Comments, questions? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Item 9, set interest rate for Guilford Supplementary Tax Relief Program, otherwise known as GSTRAP. Annually, this board is required to set the interest rate for the taxes that are put in abeyance, deferred, until such time as the property turns over, changes hands, et cetera. And traditionally, the finance director uses current yield on AAA exempt, tax exempt 20-year obligation municipal bonds as reported by Thompson Financial. And the finance director is pleased to suggest to us that the rate of 2.4% should be used for fiscal year 2015-16, and notes that this is the lowest in history. Is there a motion to set the Guilford Supplementary Tax Relief Plan interest rate for 2015-2016 at 2.4%?
So moved.
Second? Any comments, questions?
I just have a question. For people who actually borrow the money, for taxpayers that borrow the money, is it a variable loan rate that changes every year, or do they get a
Yes.
straight 2.4?
No, it changes every year, so it's
Okay.
yeah, it's a little bit of a calculation.
Good, but it can fluctuate.
Yeah,
Good question.
yeah.
Just curious how it worked.
Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Item 10, set cap for the aggregate benefit under section E2 of the Elderly Tax Relief Program ordinance. Additionally, each year, the Board of Finance is required to set the aggregate benefits. Per the ordinance, they should not be set at less than 1/2 of 1% of the fiscal year 2013-14 total budget. And traditionally, over the last several, it has always exceeded that 1/2 of 1%. This board has always gone beyond that. In the most recent fiscal year, 2014-2015, the benefits are expected to be $1,025,434. We had set the cap last year at $1,350,000, and the finance director is recommending that cap remain at $1,350,000, because it looks as if we have unexpended, well, not unexpended, excuse me, unused cap allocations.
Looks like the number of applicants had dropped at least between 2012 and 2013.
Right.
The cap
They
doesn't play
could
into
spike,
any-
though. for the
Right.
next
Cap
year.
doesn't play anything because we adjust it on the anticipated tax revenues.
Yeah.
So, is there a motion to set the cap at $1,350,000 for fiscal year 2015-2016?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Comments, questions?
Yeah, just to review this, and we've been around this a few times. What exactly is the purpose of having the cap? It's just part of the ordinance, so we do it. What was the purpose of including it in the ordinance in the first place?
It is to limit the town's upside exposure, and that was contemplated when the plan was put into place.
Okay.
And was written into the ordinance that there is a aggregate that needs to be set on an annualized basis.
And without the cap, the benefits would have to be prorated, so people would actually lose benefit from the year before.
And there was one instance in, I believe, the history of this program where the cap was exceeded. This board made an additional allocation to extend the cap so that all participants received their full entitlement. But we haven't, as you can see, over the past several years, we have not exceeded the cap. And in some instances, didn't come very close, off by 10%.
I'll just make my usual comment. I think this is a fantastic program, and it helps a lot of seniors in our community. But I've raised some concerns year after year that there's not an asset test, and there may be a question of need in some cases. But I definitely won't vote against the program. I think overall it's an excellent program.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals?
Abstain.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Item 11, committee reports. Report on Guilford High School Building Committee. Anything, Mike?
I'm going to pass
Well, good.
because I know that members of the Board of Finance did a walkthrough of the facility last Tuesday, a week ago, and I was not able to make it due to professional obligations, so I'm going to leave it to you guys. It's all yours.
And I attended that tour, but I'm gonna defer to my colleagues, one to my immediate left and two to my right, to make some comments. Jonathan, your impression?
Start. I was really impressed with the facility. I think, the public is in store for a great surprise. It's a beautiful building. It's definitely expanded our facilities for education in this town. It's a perpetuity that'll last for decades. It's an investment in children in this community. And I think it's overall, it's just a fantastic project. Also looking forward to it coming in on budget.
Yeah.
As well as on time, which will be very difficult, I assume, with how complex it is.
Well, actually, they anticipate having students in there this August, the end of August.
Yeah, new school year.
Imagine that. Didn't look like it was.
Looks like it's not quite ready.
There's a lot of activity.
Oh.
And that
Well,
is
Mike,
for
you
sure.
said what, there's upwards of a couple hundred people working on site every day?
At least, and it goes really quick, really fast near the end.
And here you go.
Wow.
Putting steel up is one thing, but putting finishes, painting, you get 150, 200 people to work on that building. It happens really quick. It's pretty impressive.
Lou?
There's a number of impressive things. The art spaces were just fantastic. I mean, there's an orchestra room, there's a tremendous band room, there's a chorus room. The theater was hard to visualize because there was scaffolding everywhere. But it looks impressive. The gymnasium and the second gymnasium, they were taking pains not to call it the auxiliary gym, were nice. And then the educational spaces is laid out very efficiently in a pod system. With the classes centered around a sort of a central teacher conference office space with a wide corridor that's sort of an additional education space potentially, and just there's a lot of well thought out items that really looking forward to seeing this thing in the finished state.
Right.
Just got a question. I mean, this is going to be a great high school, but what's going to happen to the old high school? I know they're going to raise it. Is there kind of a game plan set up in terms of when they're going to raise the whole thing?
They're gonna start, October? September?
Probably sooner than that,
Sooner than that.
over the summer.
Yeah, well,
It's going to be a project in
Didn't
itself.
some of the,
Not before we get a certificate of occupancy first. I
it's
was
going to
also.
take them about 6 months to remove the whole of that building,
Right.
but they'll start dismantling the places closest to the new structure first.
Yeah, so they complete the bus lanes and the access to the front of the facility and the parking lots. I also was attended with both Jonathan and Lou, and I was struck by the lack of enthusiasm by the principal. That's hardly the case. Rick Vicente is a tremendous advocate, a tremendous resource for this community, and his enthusiasm is infectious. Wouldn't you say?
I'd say he's excited.
But one thing that impressed me was the comments he kept making about how excited and innovated he felt his staff was about moving into this facility, and the comments that he's been getting from staff. And we've up at the high school, we've got a mature staff, folks with a lot of experience, and I think what he was telling me was, he says this may innovate some of the teachers as well, the environment they're going to be working in. So I think that was one of the takeaways, is that there's sort of this infectious enthusiasm about this within the system, let alone from outside observers like ourselves. So,
Couldn't agree more. They're going to be energized by the new building.
yeah. Old business? New business? Before we break, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want, for those in the viewing audience, the real fun for this board has already started, actually, as we've been engaged with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education in budget workshops. And just so that you know, the budgets will be presented to the Board of Finance at our regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting on February 17th, 2015. That would be 7:30 here at the Community Center. Those budgets will be published in the Shoreline Times. But before, I should have mentioned this board, as a matter of course, has public forum at the beginning and the end of all our meetings. So folks are encouraged to come, A, to hear the presentations from the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, and B, to offer their opinions to this board on what they hear and what they see during those presentations. The Board of Finance will hold a public hearing on the budget on March 3rd, 2015, and that will be a more detailed presentation by the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, which will include significant opportunities for voters and citizens to ask very specific questions about the presentations that have been made, and to also offer their opinions one way or the other. Again, that opportunity is one that some folks take advantage of. Unfortunately, I think most of us feel here not enough people take advantage of that opportunity. On March 5th, the board will hold a workshop where we will attempt to recommend out a budget to referendum. In the event that we are unsuccessful on March 5th, we'd have a second Board of Finance workshop scheduled for Monday, March 9th, where we would get a budget out. And then the annual budget meeting will be April 9th, where once again folks have a chance to come and make some comments about the budget. And then the referendum is on April 21st. So this board, this individual, and I know, I think I speak for the other members, we encourage people to participate in the process, to become informed as to what is in the budgets, and to share your opinions with us about those budgets. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're never getting a opposed vote
No,
on
it's always unanimous.
motion to adjourn.